This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 202. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Doubling season is a stupid card.
It is, Ash. Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Very sore Tam.
Don't get hit by cars.
And Thalen.
Hey there.
I shouldn't laugh because, okay, first of all, I am deeply concerned that you've been hit by 5 cars.
I mean,
Wow.
hit is really like stretching the term.
Yeah, but like I have no incidents with vehicles where I can even vaguely claim that I was hit by a car, and I'm like 10 years older than you, so I've had more time to do this.
I don't know. I got bumped by somebody's car door off my bike when I was in high school. I got tapped just enough to fall over while I was on rollerblades in a crosswalk in college.
Maybe you should stay away from cars?
I don't know, maybe.
You're a magnet of some sort.
They're out to get you.
But in all seriousness, like, this one seemed pretty traumatic.
This one, I mean, like, I didn't break anything, so that was good.
I mean, it's positive.
But no, it's not, I mean, it's not an experience I recommend.
That's good.
10 years of learning how to break falls does a lot for, keeping major injuries from happening. So that's good, at least.
Yeah, that's true. My admittedly poor remembrance of judo from many, many years ago has saved me from breaking my head open on a couple of occasions. Seriously, like, if for no other reason, like, take judo for a few months just to learn to fall properly. It's really useful.
Yeah, like judo or
Basically,
aikido.
any martial art is going to teach you this first.
Yeah.
Also, ice skating.
But yeah, like my big takeaway from this, and soapbox or whatever, but like learning how to fall sounds so dumb, and like everybody's like, oh, I can do a forward roll. That's a thing I learned when I was like 4. But like there's a skill to it, and quite frankly, minus like just having done it enough that knowing how to roll is instinctual at this point, I would be in much worse shape than I am right now. Like I didn't have any head injury. Like there was no head injury. There was no broken bones. Like I bruised a rib and my shoulder and knee are sprained. But like compared to everything else, I mean the car was going like 20 miles an hour. So,
Man.
Also don't text and drive. That's the other takeaway.
I am super happy you are mostly okay.
Yeah, I ache, but I'll be fine.
So, awkward segue. I caught up this week in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, mostly because I was trying really hard to see things before spoilers overcame me, which is getting to be a very hard thing.
Yeah.
Like, can I just talk for a minute how annoying YouTube is the day after a big movie has been released and you've not seen it? Because like there are so many videos like diagnosing the minutia of this film and like talking about little Easter eggs with like super spoilery looking thumbnails.
Well, and in this case, there's a meme going around that I'm fairly certain spoils the end of Infinity War. I don't know for sure because I haven't seen Infinity War, but yeah, it's kind of annoying.
But so I was asked to do a thing for a friend of the family, which was put the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies in order for them so that they could start watching them because they've never seen any of them. And it made me realize how many movies are in this sequence and what a honestly incredible feat it is that, like, if you go back to Iron Man, there is foreshadowing that maybe we didn't know at that time all the way to where we are today.
Yeah. I mean, there's also some things that don't quite link up anymore because they had to retcon here and there. But
Yeah, but
on the whole, it's like a solid line for 10 years worth of movies. It's madness.
it's kind of crazy. Like, and
It's pretty awesome. Like from a like, I'm a media scholar nerd out on you a bit, but like the MCU has totally changed the landscape of movies, just full stop. And I think that's awesome. Like, summer blockbusters are dead.
I can't say I'm that sad about that.
I'm not.
No,
yeah,
me either.
like, yeah.
I am a little bit. I don't know. I like my like one-time popcorn movies. I don't need to always have 10 years worth of backstory to like chew on while I contemplate the newest action movie.
That's one of the things that I actually really like about what the MCU does. Like, here's where Belle and I sometimes, yes. Here's where Belle and I diverge greatly. I got tired of superhero movies. Like, what was right before Civil War?
Avengers 2? No.
Well,
Ant-Man.
Age of Ultron and Ant-Man are the two before Civil War.
All right, I got tired.
Yeah.
I got tired of the superhero movie structure at like Age of Ultron. And never saw Winter Soldier. I never saw Ant-Man. There's a whole bunch of them that I've just never bothered to see just because I am not interested. But I can casually dabble. Like, I came back to watch Black Panther and had no problem keeping up with it and didn't feel like it was I was missing big contextual swaths of it just because I hadn't followed like 6 of the last 8 movies.
I think the real magic of this series, to touch on that, is the fact that these movies operate on 3 separate levels. They operate on a level of, this is a self-contained chunk of story that works in itself. Like, you could pick up any one of these movies and it works by itself.
I don't know about that.
Some more than others.
Some more than others, but like, for the most part, like, there is an enjoyable experience in that middle of that movie.
I think all of the ones that aren't the ensemble cast ones, it's true of.
Well, I mean, even with the ensemble cast ones, I feel like they largely work okay.
The first Avengers, yes. Age of Ultron, Civil War, not so much.
Yeah.
And like
Infinity War, absolutely not.
No. Don't try.
But they also work on a level of, I've been in these movies since the beginning, and like, this all works together, and I'm watching the storyline progress as I go. But then they also work on the level of, anyone who read copious amounts of comic books is getting constant Easter eggs to things that may never show up in the series, but they're little fan service moments that are great.
Yeah.
And the fact that they can make 19 movies that have largely operated in that fashion, I think is phenomenal. Not to mention, there are 2 directly connected television shows and 9 indirectly connected television shows.
I was going to say more or less directly connected.
Yeah, I mean, well, Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are directly connected to the main storyline. The New York Netflix shows are connected in that they talk about events that happen in the movies. And Runaways also talks about events that happen in the movies. I did not watch Inhuman, so I don't know if it plugs in more or less, but I've heard it plugs in to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's somewhat connected.
Yeah, because the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had the whole Inhumans arc, so yeah, there would be the link there.
And I don't even know, is
none of the
Cloak and
TV
Dagger
shows
out yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's pretty soon. But none of the TV shows ever feed back into the movies.
Right.
They only ever pull from.
But they're firmly in the same universe, so you have like 11 series plus 19 movies that are all feeding off of the same thing that's been created. And sure, they're all Marvel universe, but they've decided to create like a thematic universe that all fits together largely, other than the few retcons that they had to fix.
And importantly, they put this universe together from pieces. They didn't try to just be like, hey, we've got a giant universe and all our movies are going to be in it.
Right, and I feel like they did a good job of cherry-picking storylines. Like, none of the movies are exactly the storyline that played out in the comics. they are very close to storylines that happened in the comics.
Yeah, they're very good at taking a story from the comics and modifying it to better fit the screen and to use the characters that they, have access to and still maintain the core of the story.
I feel like this might be one of the greatest movie achievements to date is this series. I mean, just because it's more cohesive than anything else has been other than the Harry Potter films. Like,
you've figured out... Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's figured out how to do a continuous series while retaining a common thread, but mostly avoiding like audience fatigue. And
honestly, this gives me a lot of hope for the Star Wars movies.
I'm really interested. So my biggest issue with the MCU is that virtually every movie in it is the same genre, and that's a lot of what has sort of fatigued me out of being excited about them. Is every single movie is action hero faces world-ending thing and wins at the end. Like there's nods to other genres sometimes, but like there's still the action. It's still the action movie genre.
Yeah, they're all even when they're not just action, they're action something.
Yeah.
Ant-Man is an action heist movie.
And I think that
Ant-Man and Winter Soldier, I think, are the two that were more their own thing than...
Yeah.
But
because Winter Soldier feels a lot like a Clancy movie.
Yeah, but out of 19 movies, that's not a lot.
I feel like Thor Ragnarok is also kind of unique in a lot of ways, but it's like action comedy, much like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very telling that if you like, a lot of people's favorite movie out of the entire series is Winter Soldier, which is one of the ones that is a different genre. And I think that's the lesson that they seem to have been learning with Star Wars, because you've got your mainline Star Wars movies, which are Star Wars movies. They're doing the Star Wars movie thing, but every other movie that they've done so far and that has been announced is a totally different genre. Like Rogue One is a war movie. Solo is a heist movie, and it seems to understand what that means.
I'm totally down for that too, because like it's all I really want out of a series like this is I want them to keep fleshing this universe out. Like I geek out on world building more than I do on plots. And I want to see more of the world. So I want to see more of the Marvel Universe, which I know is a weird statement considering I used to work in a comic shop and I've read a lot of Marvel comics. But I'd like to see them on the screen. Like, my favorite thing about Black Panther was the fact that I finally got to see Wakanda. So I'm not going to go any further into that because Dalen hasn't seen it yet, but... It's like I'm all about the world building, and in Star Wars, I want to see more corners of the universe, like that I never got to see, but I only ever read about.
Mm-hmm. All the places that were in the novels and in the role playing game materials and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like a Star Wars gang crime movie in Nar Shaddaa. You could do, I mean, please make Lost Stars into a movie, because that is awesome and it would make an incredible romance.
I would love to see a film from the viewpoint of the Empire.
I mean, that's part of why I think Lost Stars is awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, please make Lost Stars into a movie.
Yeah, like, give me Lost Stars as a movie, because it's so perfect. Like, it would be so great, and a totally different genre. Like, there isn't a lot of fighting that goes on in Lost Stars. There's a little bit, but it's not important. It's not necessarily an action movie, but it's still Star Wars, and I think that's I like that they're playing around with genres more, and I feel like it's bleeding backward into the MCU because some of the more recent movies have been a little bit less action first, and I think that's neat, and I think it's what's necessary to keep it fresh.
Honestly, my only fear in this whole thing has been that we're going to see a lot more of what's happened with Justice League, where someone else has tried to replicate this formula without fully understanding how the formula has worked.
Yes, everybody wants their own cinematic universe, but they're not willing to put in all the work that it takes to create one.
Yeah.
They
Because the
just
thing
want it
is,
to exist from the get-go.
well, the thing that's painfully clear is like 19 movies in, they knew where they were going from the start, or at least they knew what direction they were taking.
Yeah, like it was very much with the Marvel movies. It seems like it's very much okay, we're doing this movie, and we're going to lay these plot threads that could lead to these things in the future, but we're focused on this movie.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also really telling that they use this gives them a springboard for movies that would otherwise never get made, like Ant-Man, like Guardians of the Galaxy. 15 years ago, there's no way those movies would have gotten even considered. Yeah. But because they're sort of woven into this fabric, they can happen, even though they're super niche, and it lets them experiment, which I think is really important.
Well, and one of the things at this point is that MCU is a known quantity. Like, I mostly don't actually care that much about comics or superhero stuff, but I have consistently enjoyed all of those movies. Even the bad ones were still better than most other things I had seen in whatever year that they came out.
Yeah.
And so A, that gives me a ton of hope for all the new Star Wars movies, but B, because they've built that, they've earned my trust, and I will go see stuff like Ant-Man, which I never would have cared about.
I'm probably not going. I know it's going to exist, but I'm probably still not going to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the next movies. There's a trailer out for it.
Honestly, like,
looks great.
Ant-Man was one of my favorite movies in MCU. Like, it was a lot of fun. I had no idea what this character was or what to expect from it, and it was a really fun movie.
If nothing else, Lawrence Fishburne is playing Dr. Bill Foster, a character from the Marvel Comics who I mean, nobody ever remembers him anyway, and he had one of the worst ignominious deaths in Marvel history in the Civil War comic story. He is going to be on the big screen. Black Goliath, superhero that never would have happened. Slightly more likely than, a talking raccoon, but only just.
I think that's great. Like, especially having worked in a creative industry, it's really important to be able to get to vent and do experimental weird stuff, and finding a way to make experimental weird stuff safer so that you can actually do it is great. I wasn't even remotely interested in Ant-Man until I saw Civil War, which I didn't actually like all that much, but I saw that character and was like, oh, okay, that's sort of an interesting character. I got this little glimpse into this character. All right, I kind of want to go back and see this movie that I missed. I thought that was neat. It would take me back and be like, all right, hey, actually, you missed this one before, but maybe it's worth your attention.
I do really hope that they keep bringing less well-known characters to the screen in hopes of finding the next Rocket Raccoon, because there are so many great possibility in the comics.
I really hope that they also work out some of the deals that let them reunite the Marvel Universe.
So I'm pretty sure I don't want the X-Men in the MCU.
No, it's too far gone.
Yeah,
they have had to replace mutant characters already that it would feel jarring to put that back in. Yeah.
But thank God they got Spider-Man.
Yes, Spider-Man: Homecoming was the best Spider-Man movie easily, and finally a Spider-Man on the big screen that really truly feels like Spider-Man.
Yes.
But I would love it if, in Infinity War Part 2, if Doctor Doom showed up. Have that be the post-credits scene, because the Fantastic Four could be fit into the MCU easily in so many ways. I know how I would do it, but I can see at least 4 other ways that would work well too.
My understanding is there's a lot of experimenting going on with, hey, the X-Men were really cool in the 90s, but and in terms of things on screen, because there was the cartoon, there were all the games.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know they went on for quite some time beforehand, but
the 90s were where they got huge.
Yeah, but also they fell off almost as quickly.
Well, and part of the problem was
2 good movies and one not great one, and they didn't recover after that.
Yeah.
Well, part of the problem was that the X-Men suddenly got huge, and then because they got huge, they got taken away from the person who had spent the last, 15 years getting them to that point.
Yeah. But I think that there's a lot of, I mean, what is the show or comic that Runaways?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
just playing with this idea of that core, this is a group, this is not a like professional team brought together like the Avengers. This is a group of people who, through whatever circumstance, live together, but also are this thing. And so it's this sort of like very humanized slice of life thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a bunch of attempts to sort of recapture that and figure out who the new X-Men are.
Like, I know there's a New Warriors TV show supposedly on the way that I think they're kind of sort of trying to go for that feel with it. But I worry it sounds like maybe they're going to lean too much into the comedy aspect. But I don't know.
I really hope that Phase 4 of the MCU starts to put to bed what has happened through Phases 1 through 3 and branches out into a new group of people.
Well, I mean, a lot of these people are at the end of their contracts. I'm pretty sure Robert Downey Jr. is ready to move on. I think Chris Evans is too. I'm not as sure about Chris Hemsworth.
I think that's okay. Like,
No, they've been introducing new characters, so hopefully they're going to just continue on with some of them and continue introducing more characters to see, what works.
Give me the Rescue movie. I'm into it.
I mean, I feel like Fantastic Four could be turned into an amazing rescue movie.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was thinking Rescue like the character.
Oh,
yeah.
Supposedly there's
or Ironheart, the character that was introduced relatively recently that replaced Tony in the comics for a while.
I mean, Squirrel Girl is supposedly coming.
She's going to be in the New Warriors TV show, so
Squirrel Girl is maybe amazing.
Oh, Squirrel Girl is fantastic. I'd also like to see them go back and maybe do some more of the horror comics stuff. I mean, hell, just make Blade officially part of the MCU. Like, it happened over there, but it was the same world. But there's everything connected to that in the comics that crossed over with superhero stuff repeatedly over the years that they could do stuff with. Admittedly, if they did a Werewolf by Night movie, they might have to change his name to something else other than Jack Russell. Dude named Jack Russell that turns into a dog guy. It's a little on the nose.
The main character of Rowdy Outta Stories is named Jack Russell. No relation.
More than anything, though, I want them to do a new Howard the Duck movie. It's actually a good Howard the Duck movie.
And do it justice.
Yes.
I mean, I won't lie. As a kid, I loved the 80s movie, but like I was also really small.
But then you read the comics, and they were this amazing, weird, countercultural, super liberal thing. They're amazing.
I mean, they're kind of in the same boat as Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to thinking about the MCU the other day, and thought it would make a decent topic, and apparently it has.
It's like every movie in the MCU is the biggest movie ever.
I really love the MCU. I just watched Thor Ragnarok yesterday for the first time.
That movie was amazing. Yeah,
that
I
movie
finally got
was
to see it just a couple of weeks ago.
Hilarious and fascinating, and like, while the Avengers are the big spectacle pieces, Thor Ragnarok is a big goofy movie, but it's also about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like it definitely took you could see the direct line between it and the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as far as feel and sense of humor. But also, just like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, there was an emotional core to the movie. And at the end, there was a big damn fight that was amazing.
I like that I don't have to watch the ones that I'm not interested in to keep up. Like, it's a movie series that I don't have to like religiously go see in the theaters every time one comes out just to stay current. I was really worried. I mean, that was my biggest worry with Black Panther, was like, I haven't watched the last 6 of these.
Mm-hmm.
Is this movie going to be fun and interesting, or is it going to be like, is it going to totally lose me? And it was great. I love that movie.
But I'm holding out hope that Jeff Goldblum's desire to show back up along with Benicio del Toro in a future movie will happen.
I'm hoping that Disney Marvel is able to do the same things with Star Wars as they've managed to do with the MCU.
Yeah, that's my biggest hope, is like, I can kind of see the underpinnings of what they're trying to do with all these side movies, and I am all about the side movies. I think Solo looks great.
You mean Lando?
Yeah, Lando the movie, yeah. Lando and Chewie the movie.
Okay with this.
So, another thing that has been happening this week is Kodra and I have been playing around with the first of the draft modes in Magic the Gathering Arena to varying degrees of success, because I am not good at drafting. Kodra is better at drafting. Kodra's had a lot of experience drafting.
I have a lot of experience drafting. I don't know that necessarily correlates to anything.
Like, you did significantly better than I did. So
it's fair.
So what are your thoughts, Kodra?
I mean, it's draft in Magic Arena. Magic Arena, the client is great. It's interesting doing these AI drafts, and they feel pretty good. Yeah, I like it.
It does feel weird to play against players that obviously were not part of your draft because they're playing the same stuff you're playing.
So that's been true in Magic Arena for a while, actually.
Magic Arena or Magic Online?
Magic Online. Like, Magic Online moved away from, like, you have to... You start your draft and then you go directly to, like, do a cross-table style draft like you would see at a store. They've moved away from that. So what you would do instead was you would draft in Magic Online, and then you would just have a group of people who were drafting at the same time. You would say, I'm ready for a match, and you would get paired. This way, you aren't, like, locked in to a long draft commitment if you don't have the time, which was the problem with draft adoption.
Yeah, I mean, that always concerned me about Magic Online, is because I thought, like, there's no way in hell I would have time enough to do, like, an entire pod in one afternoon. So I guess I was unaware how Magic Online did it.
Yeah, no, they've been doing this for a while. It's very fun. And, like, yeah, this feels very similar to playing draft.
I think my biggest problem so far is the fact that, like, I do not have a lot of draft experience to start with.
Uh-huh.
That was not as common when I was back super active.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that is, like, I've never really played the Amonkhet block. So, like, most of my recent Magic has been through Arena, playing mostly Ixalan stuff.
Yeah. Amonkhet is a draft format I'm somewhat familiar with. It's a little bit slower, so you can, like, sort of skip over your 2-drops if they aren't good. But it's fun. I love it.
So, what was the best that you ended up doing during the draft?
I have drafted a deck that went 6-3, and I've done 4 drafts already now.
I am in the middle of my 3rd at this very moment.
Yeah, the deck that went 6-3 was a hilarious blue-black cycling deck. And I managed to get New Perspectives, which is the rare that lets you cycle, draws you a bunch of cards and lets you cycle for free.
I tried a couple variants of zombie decks to not the most amazing success.
Unraveling Mummy is good, and the Accursed Mummy, the Accursed one that lets you, make a attacker indestructible is pretty great.
Yeah, I felt like I just didn't have enough of the cards on board at any given time to make any of them really work the way that they should. It's going to be interesting to see. So I'm kind of disappointed that this is a very, very limited event.
Yeah, that was a thing I was kind of bummed by.
Like, I thought that this would open drafting for a while, whereas it's basically drafting for this weekend. And I'm hoping that whenever this is done, it will basically be replaced by another expansion-only draft.
A whole bunch of Rivals data from MTGO.
I would assume they've copied that stuff across.
They probably have a good amount of Rivals data.
I mean, Rivals and Ixalan have been out for a while at this point. Well, in Magic terms, they've been out for a while.
I mean, a little over 3 months.
Yeah, there's plenty of time to draft that.
I have a feeling it will be a while before we see Dominaria.
Yeah, that would be my guess. I'm curious how they're going to do that.
Because it'll be roughly 3 months before we get the pair set for that block, right? I mean, in theory, they could do some kind of a draft event that's a mix of the new core and Dominaria.
Part of them moving to large blocks only is that they will be self-contained, though, right? Or are they intending to include core with some of the other sets for draft purposes?
I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of core is at this point. I mean,
So they can
surely
print things that need to be printed without having to be thematically associated with a set.
right, but didn't they attempt to make the core sets also draftable? I mean, because they had like entire land cycles and they had various things like that.
I don't know. We won't find out till the fall.
I'm really excited for how Arena has worked out in the grand scheme of things. Like, I think it's a really good product, and it will probably be kind of how I exclusively play Magic from now on. Other than, like, I've built a battle box for work that's got, like, 4 decks that are, you know, relatively balanced for, like, noontime Magic, but I think for the most part, like, my effort will be through Magic Arena.
Yeah, Magic Arena is really fun, actually. I've been having a blast with this. I'm really looking forward to getting it fully live and out of beta. Going to be doing as much drafting as I can, and like the price is really right for drafting. I really like that. I hope this continues.
So another topic that we were talking about before starting the podcast was Tam playing through Yakuza Zero.
What a weird game.
Is it set in the 70s or is it set in the 80s?
80s.
Set in 1988.
It is never going to let you forget that it is set in the 80s.
Nope, absolutely not. It is. You've got a pager. You save at payphones. Everyone is wearing brightly colored suit jackets with shoulder pads. It's like all garish colors. It's such a weird game. Like, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it, because it has the kind of like representative tone deafness that a lot of just crime focused media tends to have, where it's got something like 30 characters, and of those 30 characters, like 25 are male. But it's also surprisingly good at developing all of its characters. And in one particularly notable case, there's this comment that's like, I don't want to get mixed up in your Yakuza nonsense. Like, no, I'm not going to help you.
Sounds pretty reasonable.
I'll serve you drinks at my bar, but like, I'm not a Yakuza and I don't want to be. And like, that's kind of the continuing, the overriding message of the game is, if you get caught up in underworld organized crime, you can't really escape it. It's not like you can't just decide like, no, you're done and go live a normal life. I mean, but yeah. And that's part of the message it sends, is it's like you can kind of live this veneer of a normal life, and it looks kind of like a normal life, but it isn't. And I find it sort of an interesting message to send, because it rides this weird line between glorifying this organized crime thing and also really sternly making pointed commentary about how much it sucks and what a bad idea it is. And it is very 80s, and it is very Japan in lots and lots of weird little ways. Like, my inventory is constantly full of pocket tissues because there's NPCs that'll just hand them to you.
Yep.
And
you'll want those when you use the public restroom.
I'm sure, but like I don't in the game, because you don't pee in video games. Nobody pees in video games.
I mean, maybe they should.
Maybe
You'd find out about different cultural styles of restrooms.
But like the pocket tissues have flavor text on them that's like, you never know when you might need some pocket tissues. But I never actually needed them for anything. But it's got a bunch of really interesting characters. It is it has more bromance than I have seen in a video game or really any piece of media possibly ever. Like there are otome games with less developed male relationships than this one. And it's really, really good about showing this like breadth of emotions. So you have these people who are like shouting about how tough they are, but then also crying, like openly crying, sobbing in the next scene. And it isn't like, oh, we're gonna tough it out. It's like, no, we're gonna have feelings. But it's also incredibly wacky. Sometimes at the same time as it's being really serious, which is incredibly weird. Like I needed to buy myself some breathing room during the final boss fight, and I pulled out a giant swordfish cannon that I had.
Weird.
Why do I have a giant swordfish cannon? I don't know. I don't even know where I
Why
got
not?
it from. I think I fished it up maybe while I was fishing. You can badly sing karaoke with your best friend and like a bunch of other people. I think that the true test of a singer is if they can sound like a bad singer. And oh wow, do they get this like karaoke experience? This game has a jillion mini games.
Yeah, I've basically, it's like, isn't it from or didn't it start out from the same team that did Shenmue?
I think so.
Yeah, and then it went down a different path with the Yakuza games.
Yeah. But yeah, it's this weird slice of life snapshot into Yakuza life while also being just very weird and wacky in other ways. It's a trip. I don't even know if I don't even know if I necessarily recommend it. Like I enjoyed it, but it's also just incredibly weird. I sort of knew what I was getting into and knew that I was going to be like, hey, this game is going to have all kinds of weird stuff going on. And it touches on a bunch of topics. Like it goes from incredibly lighthearted and wacky to like super dark, real nasty problems.
Is it like tonal whiplash in that way?
It manages it managed to avoid it for me. Like it wasn't like watching Avatar.
Okay.
But I was aware of how rapidly it went from serious to silly, or sometimes both at once. Because you have these like fist fights in the streets, and at the end of each of them, kind of as a stylistic thing, they show you this like rapid full motion to slow motion to freeze frame that as it fades to this kind of bluish monochrome, sort of like, I don't know, glamour shot or something. I don't know the right term for that, but it's sort of the your end of fight stat screen has this background of this, color fade, but it takes its snapshot from whatever you were doing at the end of the fight. And so in boss fights or other like serious story fights, the ends of those are these dramatic poses between your character and the boss and, various other things. And then, but like on your average street fight, it can be these serious things, or it can have like this incredibly wacky shot of this guy like flipping over as you punch him, or you like posing with a giant fan or whatever it is. And then sometimes it does both things, where it's got this serious, carefully set up dramatic shot that's also silly. It's kind of all over the place.
I've heard it's amazing though, because like this has been exclusively what Sushi Geisha has been streaming for like the last 3 or 4 weeks.
What it makes me think of are Korean dramas. I don't know if anybody watches those or has seen any of them.
I've seen a couple. They're pretty nuts.
But yeah, it's like, hey, this person and this person and this person are the best of friends, and they're rival, but they're also rivals in this organization. But one of them has to get into a fight with the organization and leaves it, but his friend stays. But they still go out for drinks, and then they get into a battle, and his friend has a conflict of interest. And also, there's like, I don't know, gang members shooting people, no, this is Japan, so it's not gang members shooting people. It's people with bats going and beating people up. one of the ways in which you know this is a very Japanese game is one major plot point surrounds this unspeakable crime that one of the characters was a party to. That's like this legendary horrific crime that occurred, and it involved like 6 smuggled handguns. Like the game puts this incredible weight on the seriousness of a gun, and so it's like that's not a weapon you mostly ever get, and enemies that have them are incredibly dangerous, and they're like very serious plot points in movies where like somebody pulls a gun out and somebody's like, why do you even have that? How did you what? It's ridiculous that you would even have that. And it's like high tier crime bosses talking to one another. But also there's people that you hunt down for human trafficking at the same time. And then you fight people with a giant fan. and go fishing, and then dance fight some dudes on a bridge. That's another thing. It's a trip. I'm sort of jumped into Yakuza 6, which just came out, which kind of flashes you forward through all of the things that have happened, just so that you're kind of aware of what's going on, but also seems to sort of stand alone. But I kind of like that it looks like they're using almost the same exact map as the first one. So this part of the city, this like little section of city that you've spent all of Yakuza 0 in, and presumably other games.
I think they're all set in the same city.
Yeah,
I think so. The same area.
The map is consistent, which is cool. And so I know my way around. It looks a bit different, and some of the landmarks are different, but it's still broadly the same place, except all the payphones are gone.
Yeah, I guess in the later games you will visit some other places, but yeah, they're all primarily set in a fictionalized version of that particular district.
Yeah, the side quests are mostly you being the straight man for other people's ridiculous lives.
I mean, to be fair, at least some of the GTA series is that way.
Yeah. This was I did I talk about the stolen video game in a previous show? I know I've mentioned it.
No.
So there's a side quest. I mean, spoilers for a 5-minute side quest, but there's a side quest in which I'm going to go buy like more health potions or whatever medication, whatever they are in this game. And the store that I'm going to buy them at has this big line out front. I'm like, all right, well, that's weird. And I can talk to people in the line to figure out what the deal is. And it's like, oh, they're all waiting in line for the big video game release. Okay, sure, whatever, fine. I'm not attached to this anyway. It doesn't even flag as a side quest. It's just like, I can talk to people who are in line, and then I go and buy my pain meds and leave. But when I leave, there's this little boy crying. And I'm like, oh no, okay, here's a side quest, little boy crying. And he's like, some high schooler beat me up and took my video game. And the store's all sold out, so I can't get another one. And I was really looking forward to it. And like, so I'm a big tough sort of Yakuza. I'll go find this kid and get the game back. So you go find this kid who mouths off at you and you beat him up. And then when you beat him up, he's like, well, you can't have the game because somebody stole it from me. So it was stolen from him by some like college student who had it stolen from him by some biker guy who had it stolen from him by some like low-level gang member who had it stolen from him by some low-level Yakuza who had it stolen from him by some like higher-level Yakuza. And I'm just like going through town beating up these people only to have them tell me that they'd previously been beaten up by somebody else and had the game stolen, until I finally get to this like older Yakuza, like, I don't know, sub boss or whatever, who I beat him up. He's got the game. I take it back and he's like, look, man, I was trying to get this for my son. I really, do me a solid, man. It's really important. It's his birthday. And I'm like, no, this was stolen from a little kid to begin with. Maybe think about this better next time. And then the kid from the start comes up, sees me talking with this like Yakuza sub boss. He's like, Dad, did you find my game? I'm like, oh my God. So this is a kind of like nonsense this game has. It has a talking to people on the phone mini game. It's got the most hateful version of DDR I've ever seen as a mini game. There's I barely scratched the surface on things it's possible to do in that game. There's an entire like sub campaign in which you're a real estate agent and another entire sub campaign in which you run a nightclub, and that's a whole thing. And you can go down that rabbit hole for a long time. I think I probably spent 2 or 3 full game sessions just like, I don't know, buying and selling real estate, because that's a thing. But yeah, super weird game. I liked it a lot. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but I liked it a lot. And presumably and if you try it and like it, there is a lot of this series to potentially try and play.
So are there 7 games or just 6?
There's 7.
7, although only 3 of them are like officially available in North America, I think.
There was 4?
Okay, so it's just 2 and 3 that are missing here.
And 2's got a remake in the works coming out this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Yakuza 0, and then there's the remake of 1, which is Kiwami.
Yeah.
And then there's Kiwami 2, which is a remake of 2, and then 6 just came out, and like all of those you can play on PS4.
I think 5 is also on PS4. Maybe not.
Yeah, 4 and 5 are on the PS3. So yeah, there are 3 of them are available on the PS4, and then 2 on the PS3.
Ah, okay.
And then I think there are also some side games.
I mean, there's a lot of side things. There's some
There's a lot of
side games.
spin-offs.
Yeah, there's like the zombie invasion one ? There's the one where you play as Miyamoto Musashi for some reason.
What?
There's a movie, I think. At least one movie.
Looking at this, it does seem like all of the games came out here in some form, but 2 came over on the PS2. And we didn't get
they've been
PS3
around for a
release.
really long time.
Yeah. It might be difficult to play 2 or 3 right now, but they did come over.
They're just kind of old now. Okay.
Yeah. Which is one thing that I have heard about with some of like the Kiwami remake, for example, is it's dated it's dated in ways that updating the graphics and some of the mechanics don't really fix. And there was a little bit of that in Yakuza 0, but that's a much more recent game.
Yeah, basically there's a whole spin-off series set in various eras of the past where you play various historical figures. The first one of those is the one where you play Miyamoto Musashi.
I feel like this makes a whole lot more sense when you realize, like, given the Japanese titling of the series, considering that in Japan it's just called Like a Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me think of the Madonna Like a Virgin song. I mean, I think like the first game maybe came out on the Dreamcast.
That sounds likely.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I remember when it first came out, they talked about it being like the spiritual successor to Shenmue.
Yeah.
No,
And
it's
the first
old,
one was
but it's
just
not that
PS2 and
old.
PS. First one was PS2, PS3, and Wii U, but it was only on the PS2 here.
So I guess it could be spiritual successor to Shenmue, given that. And Shenmue was just Dreamcast. Dreamcast did not last that long. But it does have a very Shenmue feel to it. It's got a very like weird slice of lifey feel. Oh, there's a third. In addition to this game is in Japan and it's the 80s. There's one other thing that Yakuza 0 takes pains to not let you forget, and that it's made by Sega, and in the 80s, Sega was important.
I mean, Sega arcades.
There's like 4 of them in a 6-block section of town.
I mean, Sega arcades still
Really
are a
like the
thing in
PlaySpace
Japan.
era.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole like character relationship you can build, like friendship you can build with somebody who's really into Outrun. So if you're good at Outrun, they like you more. P.S. I'm not good at Outrun. And somebody else who works as the like desk person at a bowling alley.
I mean, there are in fact currently 4 Sega arcades within about 4 or 5 blocks of each other in Akihabara. So,
Well, I guess that's true to life.
I knew I had seen more than one when I was there.
I believe it. I also enjoy the incredible melodrama that you get because it's a drama in a lot of ways, but it manages to modulate, like, it's a little over the top, but not ludicrously over the top mostly when it's doing serious things. But when it is doing not serious things, it is ridiculously melodramatic. Like the aforementioned talking to people on the phone minigame opens up with your like hand nervously hovering over the receiver and you've got to like quick time event hit the button to pick up the phone when it rings. And should you successfully do this, you are treated to another one of those like end of fight super slow motion scenes in which your character like whips the receiver up so hard that there's this like you can see the phone cord like whipping around in a spiral like a Indiana Jones whip with like that dramatic whooshing sound that then fades back to normal motion as he calmly brings it up to his face and says hello. It's very goofy. It's also got a lot of commentary going on, much of it not very subtle. But I learned a whole bunch about the Japanese economy circa the late 80s.
Nice.
Which it led me down this really interesting rabbit hole in which I suddenly 90s media made a whole lot more sense to me, and why Squaresoft will never ever run out of money. So it's hard for me to dislike a game where I pick up interesting tidbits like that. But it's definitely not without its flaws. It sometimes has that kind of we are trying to be representative but not doing a super great job of it thing, which is always a little awkward or extremely awkward depending. I also want to learn there's this move that you see a whole bunch, especially towards the like high octane dramatic end game portion of the game, in which your characters like tear off their shirts to showcase their Yakuza tattoos. They're like full back Yakuza tattoos in dramatic fashion before fighting. But
is that like I don't know. That seems weird.
It's like
them all being tattooed up is not weird. Them tearing off suit
off
jackets.
Yeah,
they're
like,
mostly wearing suit jackets.
They're mostly wearing suit jackets and sometimes ties. And there's this like you can see this moment where they reach with their right arm over to their left shoulder, and then there's like a flurry of motion, and then it's like them shirtless with the like coat and shirt like flying off to one side, like a cape thrown off.
I mean, there's one of the Fatal Fury games where Geese Howard, which is like the perennial end boss of those, tears off a suit jacket and then like fights you bare chested. So there's video game context for this.
No, it's definitely like a cartoon. It's definitely an anime trope as well. The like dramatically tear off your formal wear and you're wearing like whatever to fight with underneath kind of thing. But it's very weird. That's one of those times where it manages to be like incredibly goofy but also super serious at the same time.
But I don't know, like I get the impression that Yakuza Zero just does not take itself seriously.
It mostly doesn't, but also it mostly doesn't except when it absolutely does. Like that's the part for me that's really weird, is it is perfectly happy to be silly and nonsense, but also perfectly happy to be deadly serious. Sometimes in rapid succession. But also, I guess, series fans were really happy to get to play as one of the two protagonists in the game. You have Kiryu, who is like the main character throughout the whole series, and then Majima, who I guess is this weird crazy guy through the rest of the series that you're just sort of constantly dealing with, but who's
That's
also a fan.
I've gotten,
yeah, but who's also a fan favorite because he's like charmingly weird, like charmingly kind of unhinged. And so you kind of get to see his descent from, serious and sort of charming to kind of unhinged and sort of charming, but it's very weird. He's a weird character. He's the dance fight character. You have like different fighting styles that you get to pick from that you can like swap between while you're fighting. And Kiryu has 3 relatively normal kinds, and Majima has the other thing. But yeah, anyway, weird game. I enjoyed it.
I want to give it a spin and see if I can get into it, because like I enjoyed Shenmue, but I don't know why I did.
I think that if you fall into one of the many rabbit holes that it provides you, you will quite like it.
Yeah, I just have to get like hooked, I think.
Because the game is really, really good about rewarding you for doing whatever there is to do in it. except for one thing which it will openly mock you for.
What thing?
If you can go and there's the erotic video store in which you can watch like, I don't know, FMV videos, and it will openly mock you for doing this. There's absolutely nothing of value tied to doing so.
I think for the most part, that was the list of topics we had for tonight. I know next week the second Destiny 2 expansion comes out, and I will probably be poking my head in and playing some of that.
Pillars of Eternity 2 will also have come out.
So I'm sure we will have things to talk about then. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.